So when people have that experience, and everybody has that experience, especially if they feel like they've had an epiphany or a shift has occurred, they come down from it. Everybody does. But it's not going back. It's not like you lost it. That's what people think all the time. Oh, I've lost it. I had it and I lost it. That's not what happened. How would you describe that coming down?
Just got very stressed about stuff, feeling awful about myself.
Right. So
just everything very, very dark and horrible.
Is this new stuff that's come up, or is it old stuff?
Old stuff.
Yeah, of course.
Old stuff.
Of course it is, isn't it? Yeah, yeah. So when you had a shift and you feel clear and peaceful, relaxed, open, guess what? That enables this old stuff to come up, doesn't it? It allows it. It stops whatever we were doing before that was holding it down, that was keeping it away, is relaxed, and it allows it to surface. But you can see what I'm saying about, it's human nature to say, oh, I had it and I lost it. It didn't stick, you said. That was a good saying. It didn't stick. I had it and it escaped me. It got away. Yeah. It didn't get away. How can you not be changed by an experience like that?
Yes, I mean, I think now that I do understand that, all the shifts and things that I've had, that they are cumulative, although a lot of people have said that they're not to me in the past, which is why I've kind of moved on, left them behind, and not thought about it very much. But
okay, yeah, okay. So first thing is you've got to stop listening to other people, including me. Don't take what anybody says as the only thing that you need to take notice of is your experience, and not what you think about your experience, but what your experience actually is. That's the only thing. That's the only thing worth taking notice of. And that's not even to have an opinion about it, not to say it's good or bad or anything like that, because they're just thoughts about it, aren't they? But to investigate your experience. That's the only actual thing. Your experience is your world. And if somebody says, the sky's going to fall in tomorrow, and you start worrying about that, then that becomes your world. Not because they said it, but because you started worrying about it. And the worry is what your world is then at that point. So it's all a case of how you respond. And you've heard me tell the story about the traffic lights many times. Yeah. It's human nature to kind of not even take notice of the green lights, but we do notice every red light that turns up. Yeah, that's just human nature. That's part of the original survival stuff, I think. Yeah. So, yeah. So the good thing is that this stuff this old stuff that was there, that wasn't coming up, is now been allowed to come up. Isn't that great? You got something to work on.
Yes, I mean, it never stops. There's always something there. There has been for years. So
there will always be until there isn't anymore. And I
know. It seems to be relentless, really. I mean, in some ways, it's quite good when it's particularly bad, because there's more to work on then, because there's always something to work on. But when there's a real something down, then it can get hold. Well,
you tell yourself this story that it's relentless, that it's never going to go away and stay away. If it's there and you can investigate it, it will change, definitely. So it's not as relentless as it appears to be, as your mind says. Your mind wants to confirm things all the time, and it says, see, it's back again. This pesky mind does this kind of stuff. And that's a habit too. That's
Yeah.
habitual, and we're taught to be that way. That's yeah. How things were in the past has absolutely got nothing to do with how things will be in the future or in the present even. That's just how things
Yeah.
were in the past.
I think the difficulty with that is though that I've said that to myself so many times, okay, it's just going, and then it just does keep being the same, so it's like a
Right.
self-confirming circle.
Yeah. Okay. So you might say that the way you've been approaching it, dealing with it, however you want to put it that way, um, hasn't led to a clearing up of that stuff yet. That's it. That would seem to be a reasonable statement, eh? Would
Yeah.
seem to be. Right? But these things progress in a subtle way. They don't, sometimes there's a big shift and you go, oh, wow, that was brilliant, and you get that shift. But mostly it happens incrementally or slowly. We just slide into it.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, like you, I've been at this a very long time, so yeah, it feels like continual hard work of exploring and feeling and meeting. It just never
Yeah.
seems to stop, really.
Yep, yep, yep. So one of the things to put into context is having a shift. You have a shift and you can get really high on it. You go, wow, I've had a shift, beauty. That's a
Mm,
really significant thing. But is it that significant? It does tell you something, but
mm,
what it tells you is you've taken one step forward, and there's a
mm.
big mountain in front of us. Sometimes we've still got to climb it. Yeah,
Yeah.
and so yeah,
Yeah, it does feel a bit like that, but the shift was really lovely. I mean, part of me just thinks, part of me was thinking, well, is this just what it feels just to be normal, because it wasn't any big bells and whistles, it wasn't anything
right.
exciting. I just knew
Yeah, yeah,
inside this feeling of just absolute well-being. It's very quiet, it's very
yeah,
peaceful. Nothing changed at all. It was
right,
just my perspective had changed,
yeah,
which of course is what I know from the past, that's the
yeah,
important bit really. So anyway, so I feel tremendous gratitude that happened.
yeah.
Um, I'm
Did it
just
feel
hoping
like?
that it,
Did it feel at all like you'd let go of something?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, huge relief. The feeling of relief was probably the
yeah,
biggest,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
biggest
Yeah, look,
thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
Don's turning green there. Watch it. Yeah, yeah, it is. Yeah, in my early days of being awake, and I'd hear about these people that had all these epiphanies, and I got really envious, really, really. Oh God, I wish I could have some of them. And they never happened. I had that one when I first woke up, and that never had a giant one like that again. But the ordinary ones, which are not at all ordinary, but ordinarily, yeah, they're regular. But yeah,
Mm.
it's a trick. Yeah,
Well, I'm hoping that I was very interested when I was looking at the last meeting. I think it was Wednesday, because I was trying to catch up if I missed something. Um, and I was very interested about the toxic starting point you were talking about, because I've just started working on Feta 2. I really
mm,
want to get one sort of under my belt, but I've just started on Feta 2. And that was really useful. I mean, everything that
yeah,
Eloise
I'm
and
good. Yeah,
Ramiz were talking about, absolutely me.
yeah,
And I've realized that there's another one, a really big one for me, and that's about trust.
yep,
When
yeah,
I go into any new situation, I really want to trust people. My immediate thing with most people is, oh, I really like you and whatever. But there's this thing that I just can't, I just find it very difficult to trust that anything will be okay, that anybody is okay, and you
mm,
get into it a bit more. And then I suppose it's all to do with expectations as well. Um, but it's very hard for me to trust that anything is going to be okay. I think we
yeah.
were
So
talking
so
about.
let's change that language a little bit.
Mm,
Because you've probably heard me say that actual trust is not a thing. It's the absence of mistrust, the absence of
mm,
suspicion, the absence of stories about how things can go wrong. Right. So
mm,
when you have trust, you don't know that you have trust. It's because there's nothing there.
mm,
Right. It's only, or I suppose it could be that you might go, oh, well, it's different to the way it was when I didn't have trust, and you could call that trust, but it's just a concept, right? So it's that suspicion, that other, whatever your version of mistrust is, that's where your investigation needs to go.
mm.
So if you expect problems, I guess that's a version of mistrust. If you expect to be done wrong by from other people, does mistrust involve other people always? Or, yeah, will God do it to us, or the universe, will, and do we have um, uh, magical thinking that says if things are going right, then it's bound to go wrong. We can't keep going right all the time. That's pretty common magical thinking. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
and there's certainly some of that there. I think it's sort of more to do with people. And I was thinking back and just thinking, when I was really young, you know, um, I mean, your first love affair is usually with your main caregiver. I say love affair, but that's where your
yeah, yeah, yeah.
outpouring of early love comes from. And then your expectations get quite high, I guess, and you always think it's going to be there. You always want it to be there. And I think, if you get well, I mean, all parenting is inconsistent, but if it's quite,
Nourishing.
yeah, well, I was going to say, if it's quite different that, sometimes it's really loads of it and it's just great and it's lovely and you feel really cared for. And then suddenly that's not there and it's something different. I think the inconsistency possibly
Yes,
is
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. That's pretty frightening stuff. Yeah.
yeah, and I think that's where mine comes from. I mean, I don't want to do huge investigation into the story because I've had masses of therapy. The important thing is what it does to me now. Nevertheless, I think it's quite good to recognize that
Yeah, yeah.
possibly where it came from.
So one of
Yeah,
the
so
things,
that's what I'm working with now, really.
okay, one of the things with that toxic starting point is, this is just my take on it, that we don't need to define it. We don't need to have it laid out bare and be really clear about what it was. We can presume that it came from before. That's all. And we can presume that it wasn't good. And those two things together, right, um, give us some non-defined starting point. We can also presume that it happened so far before that when it was happening to us, we were unable to cope with it in an adaptive way, right? Probably meaning that we were infants, but not necessarily, but young, but unable to. Our naivety, our innocence, probably meant that we didn't have the tools to be able to put it into an appropriate perspective, right? And so it affected us, and our bodies remembered it. Our bodies, at a cellular level, had a memory of it, and not of the details of it, but rather of the consequences of it. That is that we experienced some pretty unpleasant feelings. Uh, that's all we need to know. And so we kind of we kind of now are in a position to be able to revisit that innocent, naive person that we were when it happened, and bring on that visit, bring back an adult perspective where we do have the tools to realize that the consequences of it were probably not intended. They were accidental in consequences from people who themselves couldn't cope or were overwhelmed or whatever, you know. But we didn't know, of course, as an infant, when that was happening to us. We were just cold and hungry and unloved and whatever it was that we were. And that was it, because we that was our whole world at the time that happened. Now we go, oh, okay, I can forgive that happening for the way it was, because I understand now that I can see it from an adult perspective. And that is how we can change that, what we've been carrying all these years, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've worked through it at that kind of level. You know, I've been working at it for years. I think what's left is just the knots, you know, the stuff in the body.
Yes, yeah.
So I'm trying, you know, I mean, it's interesting if I do find something new in a story, but it just seems to be same old, same old. I don't think there's a huge amount that I'm not aware of, but I mean, just who knows what's
Yeah, that's
hidden
right.
in the subconscious, really.
And being aware of it isn't the issue, you know. Like
Mm.
you can have that story that I just told without any actual details. What's required is for you to experience forgiveness and acceptance
Mm.
of that situation.
Mm.
And if you say, oh well, I need to know the details of it, that's just an escape. That's just a way of avoiding, you know, bringing that forgiveness back there to that situation.
Mm.
So it's what we need to do is to carry back an emotional response to it, not an intellectual response. We don't need to lay out the details of who, what, where, and when, and what were the colours, and how warm or cold it was, and or any of that stuff. You know, they will often reveal themselves when we make a breakthrough with that stuff, but that it's not necessary, in my opinion. Yeah.
I have a slight. I think the toxic starting point is a really useful way to go, but the wording is quite extreme and it makes sense in certain circumstances. But I have, like, in the morning when I'm sort of first wake up, I do like a sort of check-in. It's like, you know, when you wake up and you think, oh, just getting awake, and then how's the day? And I do sort of like a check-in, and I call it the emotional tone. It's just like a sense of how's the body feeling. I mean, I don't just do it in the morning, but I call it emotional tone. Like, the body's quiet, but there's maybe, for me, it's not really true at all, but I would say there has been, and it's become less and less, a tone of sadness, sort of like at the bottom, like it's just like a gentle sort of sadness. And I would just like, oh yeah, that's there. There's something there, just sort of somehow in a very soft way. And I would just like be with it, just like be with it in that tone, just as if it was really just like a pastel layer of just sort of something completely undefined, just like yeah, like I don't know, a child could be waking up and just not be in a bright mood, or anything can be, and not make any story about it, just sort of being with this tone. And then, yeah, maybe it stays or maybe it doesn't, but it's just like a tone. It's like maybe you like listening to a Chopin B minor, you know, he's always, everything is in a minor key and it's so beautiful, instead of something in a major key, which is bright and cheery, you know, it's sort of like that type of thing. So I don't know if that's helpful.
Yeah, that's very
Thank
good.
you. Yeah.
Would you say that sadness, would you equate that sadness when you see it as your toxic starting point somewhere?
No, not really, because the toxic starting point I've traced a lot to it. That's when there is I equate the toxic starting point to when there's emotional reactions to things, which I have, you know, gone through a lot with the all through the going through Feta 4 and 5. It's taken me back to which has been sort of a lot to do with shame, type of anything to do with sort of shame. But I think the root, it's funny, my root is that word helplessness, which has been sort of coming up, which is like, it's like all the stories are just so much fabrication of stories based on escaping the essential nature of this story maker of the self, or I, is that we're trying to change everything, and it's a sort of like the layer of it's that sort of layer. I think it seems different anyway. There's less. It's because it's not really personal. It could be made personal. This emotional tone, whereas the starting point is definitely, there's a lot of past story and baggage and selfing in it. And so, yeah, I don't really know. And it's, I mean, for me in this case now, it's sort of become much lighter and lighter. There was a lot of heaviness. But I never, I guess at a certain point, there was nothing, it was just like there, you know.
Yep. I get from you when you're talking about that beautiful, that love, that acceptance, that I don't know how to put it any other way really, but that you have such a light, gentle, almost a welcoming, inviting kind of a really soft acceptance.
Yeah, it is soft.
Yeah,
it is soft.
And that's
and then
brilliant.
of course other things can arise which are more you know, selfing things in it, but it's like the layer. Yeah, let's call it the minor tone rather than the major tone. You know, if you're into music, classical music,
sweetness to it. Yes.
Yeah.
And that's such a huge thing with everything that we're doing here, you know, that ability to accept whatever turns up, whatever it is, no matter what, whether it's beautiful or ugly, whether it's pleasant or unpleasant, no matter what it is, if it turns up, it's there for us. Yeah, it's great stuff, and it's to be welcomed.
And there's so much, and I think, you know, I think there's just so much emphasis on everything being wonderful and exciting and vibrant and come on, enthusiasm, whatever. And you just, you know, you can't hold that space all the time. Well, some people maybe, but it's nice just to sort of, be able to recognize something else that's there that had maybe been neglected. It's like, why do I always have to be, you know, a go-getter type of thing? And it's just coming back to that. Yeah.
One of the things that it's hard to get through to people is that we open ourselves up to the full range of human emotions with this stuff. And that's good and bad, good and, well, so-called bad, but, you know, Good one. Have you been traveling, Soren?
Traveling?
I didn't hear that.
I've been traveling.
How have you been traveling? Yes. How are you going with this stuff?
I've been noticing distractions being more and more uncomfortable, or rather, more clearly that more and more clearly, distractions being more uncomfortable. Sort of, mm, outside going in doesn't feel as good as seeing what's inside, or outside going out with reading, learning. I'm not sure how this is applicable. I did apply for a guide yesterday, and the the application got approved. So
So you're now on Liberation Unleashed, waiting for a guide to pick
yes,
up. Yeah.
yes,
I do understand that there's quite a few people waiting at the moment. I haven't looked myself, but I did hear somebody a couple of days ago saying there's about 20 people there. So be patient. Might take a while. But yeah. So tell me about these distractions that you were just mentioning.
mm, very long time. There's been a coping mechanism of um, immersing myself in games or watching people play, and it's been more and more uncomfortable to have something unconscious engaging with something in such a way where I'm unconscious. It feels more and more uncomfortable.
So
That's the
in the distractions,
yes.
getting less comfortable when you are distracting yourself. Okay. So what are you distracting yourself from? Just what's the first thing that comes to mind?
My emotions, my body.
Right. Okay. And now
It's like a
those,
disconnect.
yep. When you say that now those distractions are not working as well for that, doing that?
Mm, yeah, maybe not working as well. It's weird to say. It's like they worked. It's not. It's like implying they ever worked in the first place. Um, it's more like less willing to um, be pulled away.
Right. So it feels a bit like there's some kind of, how could I put it, maybe some insistent that you don't distract from those feelings, those emotions.
Hmm. Insistence. I don't distract. Hmm.
So what is it telling you that the distractions don't work as well as they used to?
What do you mean by it?
What do I mean by what?
By it?
You said you're less comfortable in the distractions now.
Yes.
So what does that tell you about anything? What is it? What comes to mind? What that tells you?
The emotions are pulling me stronger.
Mm,
And I'm grateful for it.
yeah, good. So do you get the impression that there's some value in investigating your emotions?
I've known this for a while, yeah, that there's value.
Mm-hmm.
It's I saw this quite clearly on a retreat, online retreat 3 months ago, like a little 2.5 months ago, where there's this fear that's sort of there. And
Mm.
if I sit through it now, it comes up less elsewhere.
So can you say what that fear is about? Did you see what that was?
I don't know. It feels like it's been so long. It's been here so long, I don't really know.
Mm. Can you imagine that that fear is a way of keeping you away from your emotions?
Yes.
Yet at the same time, the distractions that you used to use aren't as effective as they used to be. So you've got both a fear of going there, but you've also got a bit of a pull to go there at the same time. Would that be accurate?
Yes. It's to be more accurate, it's being less and less convinced that they work,
That what works?
that distractions work.
Oh yeah, sure.
Because there was being a convinced, there was a convincedness that they used to work.
Mm.
And strangely, the more I feel the fear moment to moment, the less I try to cover it up, the more okay things feel.
Okay. So simply facing, going through the fear or facing the fear or not allowing the fear to keep you away from the emotions results in you feeling better.
Yeah.
Can you imagine where you learned to avoid your emotions?
A lot of childhood experiences. There's a strong teaching that emotions are a hindrance.
Mm-hmm.
Emotions make people go mad.
Oh, okay. That's
Emotions
yeah.
Yeah,
So if you
there's a lot of
repeat emotion,
hysterics.
sorry,
Yeah,
say that
it's
one
a lot
again.
of hysterics
Yes. Yep.
with the family situation.
Right. Yeah.
And if I express my emotions in the natural way children do, it's like pouring gasoline on a fire.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
And if you allow them as
finding it,
an adult, could you end up in an insane asylum? Or is that going
I
too?
did.
Yeah.
Oh, I did.
Oh, you did.
Like,
Hmm.
yeah, 2 years ago, I think.
Because you let your emotions run free, eh?
Yeah,
So
I,
did you
yeah,
put yourself in there, or was that others put you there in there?
it was very strange. It's, hmm, mom not trusting unusual things happening. And it was innocent, I would say. I I guess what sort of led to that was me fooling myself for a while that I was awake
That you were
because that I
um,
was awake, yeah.
yeah, gotcha.
Yeah. And there was this very strange time.
Mm, yeah. So I presume when you were in there, they medicated you. Did they give you
Yeah, they tried.
right? You didn't take it? What do you mean
Hmm.
they wanted to?
I sort of panicked when I was there because I didn't really know why I was there.
Right.
Um, initially it was very strange where I I went there calmly, sort of like trusting people,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's like, wait, why am I here? And then I was asking questions, and I suppose I appeared manic, more and more manic, and they eventually tranquilized me,
Mm-hmm.
and I ended up on the first floor for the, I guess, most extreme inmates,
Yep.
um, and moved up to the fifth floor, and I was there for 2 weeks, and they never really understood why. They
Yep.
never really gave me a diagnosis.
Yeah.
It was just a lot of, it's like a lot of gaslighting. I just saw a lot of people that were hurt,
Yep.
um,
Yep. So it was
not really
mostly
knowing what to do
yeah,
with their emotions.
it was mostly behavior management stuff they were giving you,
Yeah,
treating the way you were. Are you on medication at the moment?
no, I never,
You didn't take what they were offering.
no. At
Mm.
that point, I was very set on not taking medication because it sort of just covers up what's there.
Sure, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, but sometimes it's helpful for sure. But yeah,
Yeah,
you don't appear
yeah.
to be that way anymore. You're not. Do you have manic episodes at the moment?
No, that was, I've had a few periods of time where um, I would say very extreme, like like an extreme direction of emotion sort of subverts reality such that there's very strange beliefs that are believed,
Mm,
and that sort of like reconstructs the view of the world in a de- very, very deranged way.
mm,
Like the most recent was like something to do with being really good at video games and people coming to save me, like, oh, hidden talent or something. I don't know. It's just there was being terrified of night that I've learned some dark secrets, and there was like hearing dogs barking in the middle of the night. Oh, they're coming for me. Stuff like that.
Mm.
It's very silly, but yeah.
Well, we all have versions of that, I guess. Especially when we believe our thoughts, they can run riot easily, can't they? Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you believe in God?
Do I believe in God?
Yeah.
I guess I believe in God in the way it's described in non-duality. I wouldn't say I believe in God that the usual way of it being described.
As in a religious way. Yeah.
Yes, the way of sort of believe that like there's a divinity in all of us,
Mm.
and it's sort of surrendering to that divinity that is God.
Mm.
But this isn't. I guess it's not something I don't necessarily practice a belief in that way, but I do find it helpful to surrender something beyond me.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, that can be good. Yeah. So who's running the show? Who's in control of what you do, what you think, what you say, what happens to you? Who
Still feels like
or
me.
what? Yeah, it still feels like you. Yeah.
Yes.
Mm. That's a pretty common insanity, that one. Mm.
Yeah.
But it
I
feels,
notice how it I notice how it plays out when people um, talk to each other. And
yeah.
it's heartbreaking, I feel.
So how would you describe your suffering when you suffer? What is that suffering? What does it feel like?
Hmm. I feel like distance actually.
Say again, it feel like what?
It feels like distance.
Distance.
Um,
Yeah.
I feel like I might have not been able to answer. I wouldn't answer like this a few months ago. It might have been something like just very uncomfortable. Um, but I guess yesterday I noticed this very acutely when it sort of comes from a experience of um, like difference, like being how do I say this? Like changing the lens. No, having a reference point. Yes, that's what I'm referring to. Where it's like if it's all just suffering, it's all just distance from myself. It just feels very uncomfortable. But having spent a practice time, um, like looking in the mirror, feeling the fear, and it sort of feels okay. And then there was, I would say, 2 hours. Um, um, so there's like, I guess part of the insanity is like obsessively following people, like content creators online that there's like sort of, I guess it's a form of envy maybe, but like there's an easiness that they have in what they do, and a sort of level of skill, and like engaging in that for 2 hours, it felt very like acutely uncomfortable, like distance. So that's what felt like suffering to me.
So just what is the distance between? How do you yeah, it's unclear for me. How do you experience that distance? It's the distance from what to what? The distance between.
My, we can say like the that's not very clear either. I was gonna say like the watchtower in my emotions, but it's sort of like my mind, where I'm seeing from, and my emotions.
Okay, yeah, got it. Yeah, right. Okay.
And it's quite intoxicating actually in some ways, having that kind of, since I used to spend or there were certain games that sort of I got really into where it's like I became this other person. There's a story, and it's like intoxicated for days on ends.
Yep. But that makes it sound like it's good. But you started off, you were describing that as suffering. So I'm a bit lost there now. That when you say it's a bit intoxicating, that sounds like it feels good.
Yes,
Yeah.
maybe there was, yeah, maybe there was describing it as a watchtower. I wouldn't actually. I say that from, yeah.
So let me ask you then to try and clarify it a bit. Would you say
Yes.
that 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 part of you that we might call being aware looks feels like it's a bit dissociated from what it actually is aware of? Would that be a
Yes,
way to put it?
I dissociated. Yes. Good way of describing it. It's like it's being thrown in the washing machine.
Yep. Yeah. So there's a loss of connection. Yeah.
Yes.
Uh, yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. So, boy, you've got a bit of discovery ahead of yourself here, eh? That's kind of exciting. You think? You excited about it?
Discovery.
Yeah.
I'm surprised by you saying that.
Are you really? Yeah. So what do you mean? Why would you be surprised about that? You don't imagine there's going to be discovery?
Well, yes, I imagine there's going to be discovery, but there's sort of like the, oh no, someone has expectations of me moments.
Okay, right there. It's just how I imagine it will be. Yeah. I
I
don't.
see.
Yeah. Who knows what will actually happen? Yeah.
What makes you say that there's going to be discovery?
Oh well,
Like the way I was
I
saying it.
can see you being curious about things, and
I see.
that normally would suggest that you'll discover things. That curiosity,
Okay.
and you'll certainly discover things about your emotions. I have no doubt about that one. Yeah, and one of the things you'll discover is that they're not something to be frightened of. Yeah, but oh, good stuff. Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, that was interesting. Yeah.
I can feel the difference in emotions from now and when you started asking me questions, and it feels more like the boiler has been switched on.
Yeah,
That's the boiling is frightening, but or it might seem frightening, but it's warm and pleasant
sure.
when used to it.
Yeah, good stuff. We're just going to always look in more and more detail and closer, and things change when we see things that close up. Yeah, good stuff. How are you traveling, Paul?
Yeah, I'm very good. Thanks, Vince.
I don't want a social answer. I want to know the detail.
Got to lead into it.
Okay.
Yeah, no, good. I've been guiding now for 2 clients.
Yeah.
And very challenging. A lot of energy goes into guiding.
Oh, it does, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's very surprised. I was actually quite surprised how much energy goes into it.
Yeah.
And
And what about you discovering things in yourself as you do it?
it's amazing.
Isn't it? Isn't it?
It's absolutely amazing. Like you just go, oh, you have to sort of look look in the client, and at the same time, you have to look in yourself to see
Yeah.
what the point to.
Yep.
So it's a sort of a double whammy.
Yeah. You kind of have to try it on for yourself before you for them. Yeah.
And then you have to interpret what their position is, or where they are in the journey, in the discovery, and then see how you can, or see if you have the same relationship or something similar, and then see if you can give them a precise or a good option to have a look at something in particular.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, in normal social kind of communication, we say 50 words to get across a kind of a really loose idea, but when guiding, every single word is precise. Every single word is chosen for, consciously chosen.
But it has to be, otherwise the client will interpret it in some relationship they have with. So you sort of have to go, minimal, but you have to say so much, but in a minimal way.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Yeah. I just had one of the new guides that I've been mentoring, and he asked me to look at one of the clients that he's working with, and his client wrote this response that was like, wow, 3 pages long,
Right. Wow.
And so I went back to his response before that, the one the client was responding to, and it was 3 pages long as well. And I just got blown away by the number of words that were involved in the whole thing. And I thought, oh no, too much. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was how to keep it down and be kind of more precise, big thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I had one client who had she's very senior, and she had an experience. It must have been a significant experience when she was in her early 20s. So she'd been working on herself for maybe 60 odd years.
Yeah.
And she says everything that is right, but there's just something that I can't put my finger on that's just holding her back.
Mm.
Like she understands it all, and it's just she's aware of everything. But there's just something that's just
You
It's
got to
kind
get
of
it out of a
like-
head into a body. That's the tricky part, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, Luciana's my mentor, and so she had a look at it, and she said it's like there's an identity with the body. So
Oh yeah. Okay.
identification with the body
Yep. Yep.
and the sensations in the body. That's what it appears to be at this stage.
Yeah. Which is a kind of a bypassing thing, isn't it? You know, like because there's still that identification going on.
Yeah, so she's clear on the no self, and she's clear on
Yeah. So she's not identifying intellectually. Yeah, she's
No.
identifying with the physical. Yeah.
yeah.
So where do you know where to go from that? How do you get away from that
I'm
one?
just feeling my way through it.
Yeah. That's what I said to this bloke. I said, we just muck around until things happen, you know, we don't know what we're doing, none of us.
I've got like all the exercises and that, so I'm just trying to find the right one that sort of opens her up a bit to that.
Okay, yeah.
And then it's also in between the exercises, just pulling apart some of the replies.
David J there. David, are you there, David? David came up with a brilliant one, really brilliant. It changed things for me.
Okay, great.
And what I'll do is I already did it for somebody. I don't remember who, but I've got David, here we go.
Hi, Vince.
Hi, David.
Sorry to drag you away from whatever you were doing there.
I'm
look,
here.
That thing that you said about the pointing being taken in by the fake self. Do you remember that rant that you had about that? I've got the transcript of it. I'll put it on the guide training. There you go. But David can tell you again now. And look, it was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant. And I suspect that it might be exactly what's appropriate for this person. Yeah.
I kind of boiled it down to one sentence, I think. And it's that the receiving of a question is a doing when the receiving of a question is a doing when a doer is imagined to be receiving it. Does that land with you?
Paul's writing it down. Good on you.
I'm writing it down. Just give me a second. So the receiving of a question
is a doing when a doer is imagined to be receiving it.
Is imagined.
Yes.
Yeah.
To be receiving it.
To be receiving. Right.
So it doesn't matter what you say to her. If she's identifying with the body.
Yeah.
Right. It's that identification that's taking the question in. So it can never get beyond that. That's what limits it there. So how can she take it in, not as a doer, not as a body, not as we know she's not going to take it in intellectually because she's identifying with the body. But how can you get it past where it's not the body that's receiving the question? So it's something else.
I'm a little bit curious when you say the body's receiving, because what the body's pointing to this, it goes back to the other way, isn't it? So there'll be another story coming because of the sensations in the body. So it's all about identification. And if she's identified with the body by believing that the sensations and the story arising from the sensations are valid and working, it's like a loop rather than just the body wouldn't.
That's the other thing I it started me looking at is how there can be a subtle collusion with that basic assumption that they're making. So like in the guiding, it seems that we would have to be careful to never speak to that imaginary self. Like nothing that could be interpreted as talking to that self and expecting that self to respond. Because that's the fundamental assumption that's being used. Like the character has hidden himself in the last place that he intends to look. Like he's looking out from the last place that he will look and not recognizing that.
And what she needs to do is give up that place.
Yeah.
Paul, that place, she's taking refuge in the body. She needs to give that up. But
Yeah,
where can she
okay.
go? There's nowhere to go after that, you see, because there's nothing there really.
Yeah, like they come looking to get a positive, and they have to be invited to accept a negative, to accept an absence. And then there's no doer receiving anything.
So
It's been accepting the absence of
yes.
the identity on the body, accepting that there's.
So the proper response to any question will be, I don't know. Whatever she comes back with a knowing, she's playing with that doer. She's being that doer. Yeah. Tricky stuff, isn't it? But yeah, but it's, it gets me really excited, this stuff. I think I love it. Yeah.
I think it's a matter of who the response is imagined to be coming from.
Seems to be some confusion there for this person, for this client.
Yeah, it's often the questions can be addressed, but it's like which takes it up, the person who's doing the inquiry or the imagined self. And even though you're asking, even though the questions are clear, there's a complete avoidance of actually answering the question. The question is just goes straight into a sort of into story, and the actual meat of the question, the one word around which the question is pivoting, is avoided by that imaginary. If it's taken up by where that hiding is going on, the questions aren't responded to from the correct place of looking. They're coming just from an intellectual or story place. Does that make sense?
Like there's one primary act of imagination, and that is the doer, the thinker, the thing that's not there, that's imagined to be there, and that everything that comes after that act of imagination is going to be skewed.
So it occurs to me that it might be worth asking her questions that she cannot answer. Ask her questions that have no answer, and watch how she twists things to create an answer, and then feed that back to her. Where did that come from? How did you get to that answer? You know,
so this is recorded, isn't it?
Why is the sky blue? Kind of question.
Yeah. This is recorded,
I
isn't
want
it?
to. Yes, yes, it is recorded for this answer.
So then I should write it all down.
Something that I found very interesting to work with, and I think I have no trouble with what you are talking. Maybe because of that, or maybe because I just guide only 3 people, and it's maybe I'm just lucky. Who knows? But you know, I like to establish 3 very important points at the beginning of it. First is like there is only now that is experienced. The present is the only moment that is experienced, and here is the only place in space that you experiment. I can just be very factual about this fact, and after adding the layer of direct experience, talking only about direct experiencing. And on this ground is put, whenever you can ask question, and it's very difficult to answer from the self. Because if you ask a question like, talk to me about this self without using the past or the future sentences, or describe this self in direct experience, it's almost impossible to go into the mind. And sometimes I was reading some guidance, and often we just jump, we kind of jump. I feel there's different guidance, but some people jump into the flow with the guidance with hoping to bring it out of it somehow, you know. I think it's just important to really set up very, very strong rules at the beginning, straight away, because otherwise it's like what you are talking, you know, where you are answering, and you start to try to arguing with this self that doesn't exist. But I find very interesting this question of talk to me about this self without using the past, and often it's just you know,
Yeah.
where do you go from there? But I think what David say about
We lost David. No, we lost you, David, right in the middle of a sentence. Your internet froze up.
frozen. Sorry.
So
No, I was just saying.
The last thing we heard was what that was about.
What that was about?
Yeah.
I was just sharing. I don't know where you got, but
No, that was what you said with the last thing before you froze up.
oh yeah. I was saying that what David said about the negative, that people come from a positive, from a confirmation, come from finding something, but all they got is negative. It's a negation always.
Absolutely.
I find this point very, very interesting. I don't know if this makes sense to you, Paul, what I'm saying.
I do understand, yeah, what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah. To more or less to be very specific on applying the direct experience in a place of presence, without digging into memory, digging into a sense of, maybe projection or pulling out a memory from the past, or an association with memories. Is that more?
Yeah, exactly, because you can see people go into memory very fast, and they don't realize that first it's thoughts, that they can write 3 pages, For me, it's just thought, and I answer, okay, this is a thought, and so, I don't have time for this. But it's past. They go into the past. But when you say thoughts, they don't see the connect. Often they are difficult in seeing the connection between past and thoughts. That thought is I'm always in the past. They don't often. It's not very clear, but with time it become more clear. And I think it's also very important to really have, yeah, like you say, be careful with the word, with the kind of lexical field where the discussion is going. But that's why I'm saying that there is very good direct exercise if you a direct experience have very the semantic, the words you use to describe direct experience is very narrow. There's not so much word to talk about your direct experience. You know, seeing, sensing, color. It's the lexical field is very, very narrow. So discussion become very kind of very straightforward more easily. If you put out past sentences and you stay in direct experience, the discussion kind of go in one way.
Yeah.
How I put it is that there is the only thing that is actual, and because I use the word actual rather than reality, the only thing that is actual is your current experience. Everything else is a concept. And you could even challenge them to say, tell me something that's not your actual experiencing, current experiencing, that is not concept. And they can't do it. You know, that's the only thing that is actual, current experiencing, what you are experiencing now. Because an experience is a memory. So that's conceptual, current experiencing. And that gets kind of interesting as well, because by the time you become aware of current experiencing, it's not current anymore. There's a millisecond delay between the awareness and the actual experiencing that you're becoming aware of. So it's already in the past. But that's as close as you can get to what is actual, your current experiencing.
Which begs the question, what is the relationship of awareness in the experience?
Well, be careful with awareness. I don't say awareness. It's another one that's like enlightenment and God. It's just full of shit, you know. So you talk about you being aware, if you like, but not awareness. So being aware of what I am currently experiencing.
So, but it's also an identity, isn't it? Can be an identity or an identification.
Well, only if you get off into thoughts and say, well, who is being aware? Then that's another conceptual thing, isn't it? So we can't go there because all thoughts are bullshit. Why go anywhere near thoughts? Yeah.
The only reason I raise it because I have a client that's stuck there.
Yeah. People do get stuck in it, especially if they've come from non-duality stuff. They see awareness or consciousness as their new God, you know.
Yeah.
But it's bullshit. It's just thoughts, right? So what is your current experiencing? You know, this is a resting place. This is not a final thing by any means. But what your current experience is, right? That whole process is a way to separate thinking out as what it is, stories. So you can have a thought about something and have a response to that thought, and that response is you're experiencing. But don't tell me what you had the thought about was real. Only your response to it is real. And there I am using that word, but that'll do for the moment.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think one good what helped me step out of the duality between awareness and object or thought or sensation or whatever, was the understanding that whatever is here have no shape. I really love the dream analogy because I think it's very pertinent, because when you dream, everything you see, it's your mind, you know, it's kind of an expression of you. At the same time, from within the dream, there is no image or experience that is really exactly you, exactly the mind of the dreamer. So I think it's helpful because from there you can say very confidently that your actual experience, whatever shape it has and whatever it looks like, what is actually here is you. Everything is you.
And that's the way it is in the so-called real world too. Everything is.
Yeah, but like you said, it's real. It's very, because if you dream feel real. So the word real, it's nasty, and it's kind of it's difficult after to really, because we have to define reality and it's impossible. So it's true that actual, it's what is actual here always feels real, and it is, but it's not what it looks like. Just like a dream is really you. It's really your experience, really you shining somewhere, but you cannot find it is you specifically.
Yep. So when you ask her a question, you're asking the kind of questions where she can only answer with a description of her experiencing. Anything other than that is bullshit. Piss it off. Don't have anything to do with it. Go away. Come back with a description of your experiencing as the answer to every question or any question.
Yeah, it's a good one. Yeah.
Right.
But
Thank you.
does that leave room for someone who's having the experience?
No. If that can only exist in thought. Somebody having the experience. So that was a question that I got asked when I first came to LU. And that was, is it necessary for the existence of an experiencer and the experienced for experiencing to happen?
Well, that's a nice question.
That's a good question. Yeah.
That's a very good question.
And that's a good one. That's a good one to know where they're coming from.
Yeah. That's one I might put to.
Yeah, that was badly phrased on my part, but you get the message.
Yeah.
Even if you just start with, is it necessary that there is an experiencer to have an experience? Or is experiencing dependent on an experiencer? And it's clearly not.
Yeah.
And the mind cannot make sense of that. The mind cannot, because of our language, it's always subject and object and so on. So logically, the moment we use words to try and portray this, we're excuse the pun here, we're subject to the subject-object dichotomy. And what we're talking about is neither subject nor object. What we're talking about is the verb in between those two. The verb, the action. So an experiencing is absolutely standalone. The experiencer and the experienced are both only exist in the mind with thought. I use an exercise, and it's one of the very few exercises I do use sometimes, and it's a bit of a tricky one. I call it the cup exercise. And if you get somebody to put a cup on the table and look at it and keep looking at it and keep looking at it and keep looking at it, then what they will discover is that they hone in on the details of the hues of the color, and the texture becomes obvious, and maybe the outline, the form of it becomes obvious, but none of those things can be described in words accurately. If they try to describe it, they have to simplify it to an extreme extent. They have to say, well, it's a white cup, but it's not white at all. When you look at it, it's got shades, and it's got reflections, and it's got shadows, and it's got all sorts of things involved in it. That it's white is just a simplistic notion of whatever. If it's a white cup, you know, and the texture was smooth until they started to really look at it, and then all of a sudden they see all these little imperfections in it, and so on. And again, words can't describe that kind of thing. And what was round becomes more oval than round, and it's got irregularities in it, and so on. And so once they're able to see it at that level, if you ask them now, who is seeing it? What they have to do is stop seeing it in order to think about who's seeing it. The same as if you asked a question, what is it that you're seeing? They have to stop the seeing in order to think about what it is they're seeing. And if they say, oh, I'm seeing a cup, you say, well, where did this idea of a cup come from? You know, a cup has got a purpose. How can you see a purpose that this thing is meant to hold a liquid for you to drink out of? Where do you see that? That's all in the mind, isn't it? You know, so you can often get them to actually experience the fact that the seer and the seen can only exist as a thought thing. But the seeing itself, that's the verb, that's an experience. Yeah. It's a good little exercise.
It's also probably a good segue into opening up.
Yes. Well, another one that when you mention the word segue that comes to mind is that I often use is that one where if the tree falls in the forest and there's no one there, does it make a sound?
Yeah.
And of course, I don't want them to answer. I want them to, I want to be able to follow up. And the follow up is that, of course, there's no sound, there's just vibrating air. And if there's no air to pick up the vibration, and then that air translates it into things on the inner ear, and then that gets translated into a nerve impulse that travels up to the brain, and it's the brain that reinterprets that nerve impulse as a sound. So guess where the sound happens? Not out there where the tree fell. The sound happens here in the brain. And that's so for all of the senses. Every one of the senses gets interpreted as that sense experience in the brain. Now, this is a story, of course, because they can't experience that, but it's what it tells them is that everything that they see as the world out there is really happening in their own head. So, therefore, everything is an interpretation. Their world is unique. Nobody shares their world because it's an interpretation as a result of their own experiencing, their own conditioning, their own everything. It's pretty hard to get around that one.
It's very hard. Well, thank you for that. It's very good, very helpful, very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, just incidentally, the guide training one happens on Monday morning at 5 a.m. my time. Yeah.
Yeah, that's 4 a.m. my time.
Right. Yeah, that's pretty early. Yeah. But no, that's good. I mean, I'm sure even the non-guides here got value out of some of that stuff. I would hope they did anyway. Yeah. What about you, Melly? Did that make sense to you, any of that?
It's a bit difficult today for me to grasp what you're saying. I feel like I have gone back a bit. I got the question from my guide, is there a seeker? And with that, I am thinking, if I were to answer that question, like, then what do I do with all of the thoughts that arise, which are believed and from which I react? So that's something I'm not okay with. I believe my thoughts and then I become angry and I react, and I cannot accept that. So if I go for the seeker, the thinking is still happening and reaction is still happening.
Mm.
And harm is still happening. I don't want to keep harming other people. So I'm a bit stuck there, and I have a long list of my thoughts, like that day when I had those reactions, and just a few days ago, a long list of thoughts that I think I need to question. So
That was my watch saying, answering you there. Just ask. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know where to go today.
Well, how about I make it easy for you? It doesn't matter how long that list of questions are about your thoughts. That can be 55 pages long. Doesn't matter. They're all bullshit. Every one of them. That makes it easy, doesn't it? But
Well, it doesn't make it easy because I keep believing what this
yeah,
mind
yep.
is saying.
Okay, so that's a reality for you, that you believe your thoughts and you respond to your thoughts. Okay, now
Yeah.
it's not that we don't want to stop doing that. We want to make it unnecessary, but we don't want to stop it. If we're gonna get the whip out, or the laser machine or whatever, and kill it, that doesn't achieve anything. You know, in fact, all we do is we make it trickier or stronger or something. You know, so we've got to make it unnecessary. So the reality is that you do believe some thoughts. You say thoughts like it's all thoughts, but I bet you it's not. It's only some thoughts. Right. If I say
Today is all thoughts, actually. Today is every thought that's coming and believing. Yeah.
it appears like that. Okay. Have you had, I'm sure you've had some thoughts that you didn't necessarily believe. But anyway, that's beside the point, really. Anyway. So what you're saying is that you saw yourself responding to your thoughts as though they were true.
Yeah.
Would that be an accurate way to put it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And one of those thoughts was, I don't want to do this. I don't want that to continue.
Yeah, and well, also what I'm learning from doing self-inquiry is that the ego projects what I am doing, what I am trying to hide from myself. I put that on others.
Yep.
Like I put on other people.
Yeah.
It's what I'm learning, that how the ego functions.
Sure.
So I blame the other. You're doing this, you're doing that. when it's me doing it, and
Oh,
I'm
yep, yep,
blind to
yep.
that.
You're not alone in that one. We all do that. That's human nature too, you know.
But that's self-inquiry, what I'm seeing, like, because then I turn those thoughts around, and then it's all about me.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
my
yeah.
stories. It's
Yeah.
about me and
Okay.
not about the other.
So the really crucial one here is, how do you respond to that? I hear you
To
responding to that by saying, I better not do that. That's not right. I don't want to do that. I don't want to hurt others.
I don't want to react. Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
want
yeah,
to
yeah.
react to my
Okay,
thoughts.
so that's a real thing that you're responding to, isn't it? I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Right.
But I'm triggered, and then I
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And then guilt comes, and then I have all of these thoughts that I
Okay.
need to question.
Can we invite that guilt to not come by just accepting that it happens? Right? You're not a bad person because it happens. It just happens. Right? The idea of being a bad person, that's just another story.
Then the thought is, if I don't feel the guilt, then I'm not going to try to change it. It will happen again and again and again and again.
Right. So that brings us back to, you still believe in that there's somebody in there controlling things.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I heard you say earlier, ego has some kind of life of its own.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Ego's
And
just
ego has an agenda. Ego is
okay.
ego is working this.
So let's call ego the self. Right.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it. And the self does have an agenda. And that agenda, and something we've learned, it's not because it's inherent in it, it's something we've learned, that what that self is a body of armor, right? And it's a protective thing, right? And it's doing what it thinks is the right thing, the best thing for you. It's trying to protect you. It's trying to protect its own survival, because it thinks that without that, you're in trouble. You've learned that you need to control things, otherwise you're in trouble.
Yeah, it's trying to protect the body, but it's confused. It sees danger where there's no danger, and it's
absolutely. And it doesn't just try to protect the body. It tries to protect your reputation. It tries to protect what other people think of you, all that stuff as well.
Yeah.
So it's not a problem. It's a solution. It's inappropriate, but it's a solution.
I don't like it.
I know you don't like it, but we've got to thank it for being there before it goes away. It's not going to go away by you telling it to go away. It's only going to go away when it believes it's unnecessary. That's when it'll go away. So how do we make it unnecessary? Well, the first thing we've got to do is we've got to thank it for being there. Thank you, ego. Thank you, self. And then we can start to see why it's unnecessary, or how it's unnecessary, or that it's unnecessary. So you haven't had an experience of there being nobody in control and everything's worked out okay. Or you have you? Have you ever driven a distance in your car, and you've got there and you've suddenly thought, gee, I don't remember the last 10 minutes, and yet here I am. I must have done everything right in the car. I pressed the right pedals and the right levers and everything, and I got here. I stayed on the right side of the road. I didn't have a crash, but I don't remember any of it. Have you ever had that?
I've had the experience. I've had, like, for a few months, like when I woke up in the morning, it's like something else woke up before the thoughts did.
Yes.
I woke up before, and then just not ignoring, but just in the background. The thinking was in the background, and sometimes it felt like far away. Thoughts weren't even here; they were somewhere far away.
Good one. I love that.
I had so much energy and just very, very awake.
Until they came
But
back.
then until the dialogue, like it
Yeah.
started,
You
like
know,
two people
I
that
believe
having
that
conversation.
the Buddhists have got this wrong, you know, about reincarnation and lifetime after lifetime, because what the Buddha really meant was that every morning when we wake up and the thoughts come back, we recreate the self. And so we're born again every single morning. We go through lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, every morning when we wake up, right? And when you wake up, all of a sudden you don't have to start going, oh, now my name is this and I've got to do this today and et cetera, et cetera. You know, you don't recreate yourself in that way. You get up and you go, oh, okay, how is it? What am I going to do? Where's going on? You know, whatever. Yeah.
That's like Saint Paul said, one of his quotes or his letters, it's I die every day.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah.
That would be so wonderful to wake up and just not know what I'm going to do.
Yeah. Be open.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Instead, I wake up and yeah, guilt, some guilt. What did I do yesterday? Oh, there's the guilt. And then this I'm going to do today, some excitement.
Follow it up.
Looking forward to, some past and some future. And then I'm back in the me.
So you've had, this is two experiences you've had that you haven't given appropriate import to, importance. The driving one, which showed you that you don't actually have to be in control all the time, that things will take care of themselves, right? And Melly wasn't there saying, you know, make sure you stay on the right side of the road and make sure you indicate when you're going to turn and do, right? And the other one was when you woke up and you had that experience of just, you were without a self for a little while, right? Brilliant, great experiences. Those two things alone show you phenomenal possibilities. And yet nobody's telling you about them. They are your experience.
So my question then is...
this is your mind coming back, of course. Go on.
Yeah. My mind is saying, my mind has an agenda. Like I am going to to do this my way.
Yeah.
But what do I just what do I do with all of these thoughts that are
you don't have a choice about this, but we talk as if you do have a choice, okay? But we know you don't. Nobody has a choice. You know, the choice is another fantasy. So ideally, and because of this conversation, it may well be that a thought will arise to do something different. But ideally, what you do is you thank those thoughts when they turn up and say, I know you've got my best interests at heart, but fuck off. We don't need you at the moment. That's what we can say to your thoughts. Or a version of that. Yeah.
But that's not nice to say that to the thoughts.
Well, I can say that to my thoughts because I'm really friendly with them, you know, and they don't take offense when I say that.
Okay, mine do. Mine don't like swearing.
Oh, yeah, right. You don't have friends that you can talk to like that? And they don't.
No, I don't talk like that too.
No, maybe I was a bit over the top for you. Okay.
Can I make a
go on,
suggestion? Because I agree with you, Melly, and I've never I don't take the harsh. I'll laugh. But there's a couple of things. First of all, because we can understand that they're protecting something, the thoughts, even the reactive ones, there's something that's being protected, even if they protect in a way that after the fact, you know, like a child sort of picking up, throwing something and then breaking it and then being scolded afterwards that it shouldn't have done that. There's something underneath that those reactions are protecting. So it's a mechanism, protective mechanism. And so there is a root of protecting something, something that goes way back, you know, even if there's impatience or frustration, there's layers. And so there's something soft, I would say soft underneath all that is being protected. And the thoughts that are engendered, they're coming from like a base of fertile grounding, and that's in the body. And so it's like if there's a thought attack going on, it really is, and the thoughts are going, and yes, what Vince was saying, that they're not being helpful at all, they really are bullshit. It's like, okay, this is the signal to get back into the body, to see and just be with, for whatever is possible, even if it's difficult to be in the body, to start with external sensations of like rubbing the hands together or putting the hands on the heart, and grounding the energy, because the thinking energy is very, it's like a helicopter at the top of the head. It's like pulling all the energy up. And so it's the sign to have to get down into the body to calm the whole organism down. Because there won't ever be any solution by keeping in the thinking, because where do the thoughts come from? Is there a thinker of thoughts? Are you the thinker of your thoughts?
Yeah, and they're endless. I will never be able to question every thought. They're endless.
And who is it that questions? Who is it questioning the thought? Where can that questioner be found?
Even that is thought.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so thought is looking for something. It's looking for peace, actually, it is. So when I ask who am I without that thought, then I find that space of no thought.
But then,
but it's like
that's a wonderful, I think that's a wonderful sort of like pulling you up to sort of like, oh, there's that space, but then there's the opportunity to go deeper into it sort of like stops the thinking, like what like you can say also, what's my next thought going to be? You know, what's it going to be in you? And it'll just stop you in your tracks. But the main thing is following when there's a outburst of thought, especially if it's self-recriminating or anxiety, things to do, is to get into the body to because that's in a way the fertile ground for producing all the thoughts that are, you know, that we'd rather not have to believe or follow.
Yeah. Yeah, as you say that, I noticed when I pull my attention down to my body, I notice discomfort. And then there's awareness that I am up here when there's discomfort down here, and I don't want to be down here. And feeling.
Can you get down there now? Can you get down there now? And can you describe a little bit where you're finding sensations?
It's in my entire body.
Okay. So can you just relax and into really sort of in a way sort of fall into, become more intimately connected with your entire body and the sensations of the body. Now, can you be in your body with those sensations? Can you rest there and hold that space? Are the sensations still the same, or have they changed a little bit?
There's a belief that I cannot let it go. There's the belief that I have work to do.
So that's a distraction from being in the body.
That I'm not okay. Yeah, I'm not okay. I'm not okay the way I am. It's not okay. I'm not okay.
Okay, so that's a thought, but it's also a diversion. You were with the body, and then it was like the mind starts saying,
Yeah.
"Hey, come here, come here."
Yeah, but my
diverting you.
mind is saying you're bypassing things. You can't just be
Yeah,
and
but
be
again, those
and
are
allow.
thoughts. But these are
Yeah.
all. Can you see the mind? They're all thoughts, and it's a mechanism that has been in place because the mind thinks that it's protective. It thinks it's so smart that the thoughts come but it's all diversion from actually being with sensations, which have been. It's like they've left a sort of a trace of in the body for as long as we've been alive. There's these sensations which have been bypassed. It's actually the bypassing of the sensations rather than the bypassing of anything else. The mind can say what it likes, but it's starting to, in a way, melt or dissolve all the filters and resistances that we have created to actually being in the body, to feel these uncomfortable sensations, which were too much when we were really tiny children. It was just, there was too much sensory data coming in. It was just too much. And so there was diversion, either to go and play or whatever, however it happened, or to read a book or
Think.
and so then you can notice, okay, the mind's just saying, oh, you're diverting, you're bypassing, and just, oh, that's a thought. And you can let it take you away, but then when you become aware, oh, wow, I diverted, you can just then, that's like, oh, I was aware of that. And I'll go back and just see where I was in the body. And it becomes a little bit easier to be more and more connected. But it is a practice because the mind will always want to be diverting you in the beginning, because it's creating new neural pathways which haven't been in place before. So it takes time to get those established.
So what you feel, Melly, now? What is your sensation now?
It's that feeling of nervousness in the body, discomfort.
Is it actually, is the label discomfort necessary? Can you just be with the sensation and take away the negative label?
Yeah, it shifts. Yeah, I like that. To be with it without any labels. Yeah. Not label even the sensations. Yeah.
And that time the mind didn't hijack you, didn't take you away from the sensations this time. You stayed with it. Yeah, great.
I would like to take with me a practice. I tend to be a lot up here. Is this a way to just notice that and to maybe close my eyes? And do you have any other practice to I don't know, maybe to look around and to just I don't know, do you have any practice to
Meli, at some point you will have to be with the sensation.
so just be with the sensations throughout
At
the
some
day?
point you really have to kind of put your feet on the ground and say, okay, I will be with my sensation as long as I can in the moment. Because even techniques, after you look for better techniques and a technique with the technique and technique with the technique, it is endless again, you know. What Rowena show you, it's very beautiful, you know. She show you be with your sensation. And you'll be uncomfortable in all this process, but you will have to be with the sensation. And there's no technique for this. I mean, technique come naturally, but you have to be with sensation. That's it. That's my take on it.
And,
You really have to just
Yeah.
be with it.
And I was also just going to say that, you know, there's different types of sensations. Of course, we got many different types of nerve endings internally and externally, but it's also really good just to just carrying on or making a ground for that, getting into the body one, is just feeling your butt on your chair, you know, just sensing body parts connecting with either other body parts or holding a cup in your hands and just closing your eyes and feeling those sensations and sort of in a way, yeah, just putting all the attention going into the sensation. And that can be, if it feels uncomfortable in the body, it can be like a segue into actually being able to feel what's in the body. Oh, you know, there's a little bit of diversion. I'm not going to label it good or bad. I'm just going to be, but then you can move to other sensory areas a bit more on the outside of the body, if you see what I mean. Because sometimes the sensations they're strong, sometimes they're numb, sometimes there's areas that are numb because we've put such a protective area of like a no-go area, and then new ones come in and they can be quite overwhelming. And so then it's, yes, finding other places.
I aim for
Feet
detail.
on the ground.
Aim for detail. Go for the most detailed examination of the sensations that you can go to. And in your case, just watch when the mind wants to take you away from that and just don't do it. Don't just allow it, just go back to the sensation, but more detail.
Like right now, you are already in the future, thinking about I will do it tomorrow, or are you feeling it right now, right here, now, not tomorrow. I will feel better tomorrow. No, now, right here. What do I feel right here?
Yeah.
Thoughts appearing. What do I feel about now? What do I feel about this thought? What do I feel? Because this is the thing with technique. Technique always brings you a little bit in the future.
Mm.
Right
Yes,
now,
something
again,
to
I'm
do.
speaking now. Yeah, exactly. I don't know why I feel to be very firm now with you, but I feel that you are in that space that's what you want. What do you feel right now as I'm speaking? Doesn't matter what I'm saying. What do you feel? What do you feel? What do you feel? Yeah.
Yeah, it's avoidance. I can see it's avoidance of just being with the body. Yeah, and also I can see fear of losing control. Like
Yeah, but these are all
yeah,
thoughts.
and also
They're all
all
diversions.
thoughts
Yeah.
and
all
losing an
diversions
agenda.
away
And
from
then
that.
what? Yeah, and then what
Exactly.
will I do
And what do you feel about that right now? Do it now.
about?
About what you are saying. Well, how do you feel about this
And he means to
right
feel
now?
literally. He doesn't mean what you think about it. He
Yeah,
means
it's
what you feel
go
about
to
it.
sensation. What are the sensation right now as you are speaking about those stuff? How is it
How does it feel when I say those things?
right now? What is your sensation like?
So you would differentiate between emotion and sensation, right? So
I'm not asking to, I am asking you, how do you feel your body right now? Do you feel your body right now?
I do. It's not comfortable.
Exactly. So stay with this.
Lose the label.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a good one for you, that one.
Yeah. Not leaving me with anything. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Not leaving thought with anything, not leaving me with anything isn't right. Not leaving thought with anything. Absolutely.
Where are you right now?
And now it's
How
just
do you
funny.
feel?
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
feel how funny is like in your sensation, how it is in your body when it's funny, in sensation right now. Yeah, exactly. This is the shift. This is the shift. This is what you're looking for all the time.
Facing the. What did you say?
Sorry? No, this feeling your body as it is right now. This is this is it. Without label, like say Rowena.
What?
Lose the label, the label, the concept, and feel your body.
Okay.
And sometimes tears can happen, or sadness can happen. And there doesn't need to be a label or a story. There might be, and that's okay too. But it's like allowing all the sensations that have been avoided, that the mind has removed and said, oh, I can do a better job than what's going on down there. And yeah, just, okay, I'm going to sink down here, be with this.
Yeah, I noticed sadness there. Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe the sadness is welcoming you home to be with that tone that had been avoided. And it's sweet, the sweetness in it. And there doesn't need to be a story, although there may be.
Thank you.
How have you been doing?
Hey, Vince. Yeah, not too bad. I was trying to think just now, well, for a while, how if I look back the last 7 days, there's been a bunch of positive things, and which I, as you can imagine, I'm determined to ignore, right? And go on to the next problem that I need to solve. Yeah, it's funny. I was just listening to that with Melly now, and I was just thinking I guess it was last Sunday, I was just, whatever that word is, typing on LU, and I was doing a similar thing, I guess. I was trying to sit with whatever sensations and stuff. And there's also stories about my life not being wonderful and just not wanting to. I said something to Luchan, I think, about like, I'm resisting. There's so much resisting to sitting here and looking. And she said something like, what would happen if the resistance to sitting and looking weren't here? And I read that and I was like, oh, they'd just be sitting and looking. And so I was just sitting and looking then, and like, I'm just present now. The presence, the resistance and the identification and the mind and the thinking and all that was like, oh, it's just. So I've been kind of coming back to that quite a lot during the week. And yeah, that was pretty intense watching. And I don't want to tell too many stories. I always say that, don't I? I always say that. I don't want to tell too many stories, but I'll tell you, I was there last Sunday, right? And that kind of cheered me up a little bit. I was kind of clarity from reading that and kind of being seemingly present a little bit more and just feeling the resistance, but seeing some presence despite that. And I decided to listen to this Angelo meditation called Endless Access that I hadn't heard for a while, because I usually reserve it for times when I'm feeling cheerful. So I haven't heard it for about 4 months. But and every now and then it kind of catches me, whatever way he says about the truth or about who or what we really are. It catches me, and I feel like tears come to my eyes with gratitude that I can see it a little bit. And I was just in tears for a half an hour to 40 minutes the whole way through the meditation, going, oh my gosh, I can completely see everything he says. I haven't got distracted for the whole thing. I'm seeing everything he's saying completely clearly. And I was really grateful, just that I could see it and it was the truth or something. And I guess I was also a little bit sad that I was like, gosh, I spent my whole life trying to get away from this, getting away from what's true or what's, happiness. And I guess my dad would have pushed me away from it too. But then there's a voice in there going, no, you don't see it. You're identified. You're an idiot. You don't deserve this. The voice is so strong in there. The doubt is so strong. It never fully goes away. So a lot of the time I just spend trying to, and I think I'm getting back to it earlier in the morning, just sitting going, can I be present and see whatever is preventing this or doubting this? And can I see into that doubt or that feeling of whatever the feeling is that I'm telling myself is identification or telling myself is doubt? Can I see into it? And one day, I think on Wednesday, just for the first 10 minutes, and then the rest of the time was kind of confusion, I saw 3 or 4 thoughts in a row, which were asserting as usual that they had to be believed because they were so logical and based on evidence. And I was looking going, oh, hold on a second. That's not based on evidence. That's not logical. That's just a bunch of random thoughts in a row, all telling me that they're so dependable that I have to believe them. And I saw 3 or 4 of those in a row going, gosh, that doesn't have to be believed. And not only that, but it doesn't refer to what it talks about. It's just pretending to know anything whatsoever about reality. And then the confusion came back, but at least I saw 3 or 4 of them. It was funny. And then just quickly, I had a root canal on Wednesday. Pernilla uses that as an example, a warm bath or a root canal. I was in this kind of chilled out place. I was sitting in the car park for half an hour beforehand, and I was just trying to be present and very chilled out. Had my root canal. I was in virtual bliss. It was funny. They didn't gas me or anything. I was just feeling chilled. for the whole hour and a half of the root canal. It's like, this is cool. I'm actually feeling good, you know, getting the root canal. And then I left there and I got annoyed by the dentist because they seem to be always scheduling new, very expensive treatments without any permission and spending thousands of euro of my money without actually asking me if I wanted. I spent the half an hour in the car going home, getting furious in my head with the dentist. And I was thinking, this is ridiculous. I had such a positive experience. All I'm doing now is just, you know, going back onto a negative trip. But anyway, there was some, you know, there was some positive experiences during the week. And I just want them to, you know, I'm greedy. Like, I want them to build into something like that makes me feel better on an ongoing basis rather than having a few minutes every now and then. But I guess it was a better week than many weeks I've had recently.
So something's changing, eh?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Seems to be a little bit.
You better
Yeah.
fight harder to keep it the way it was.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I know. It's funny. I do wonder what there's so much resistance to staying here and it seems so empty or scary or something. And I suppose there is a lot of fear here all the time. So the thoughts are there in some ways to check for something that's terrible going to happen any second. And it's kind of associated with fear in my body and so on. But so it's
do you
it's
like
weird
scary movies?
Yeah.
Do you watch scary movies?
So every now and then, sometimes. I remember when I was very anxious a few years ago, I used to watch The Walking Dead to calm myself down. That's funny.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a scary movie is pretty lighthearted compared to real life, eh?
Here's a real life. Yeah, yeah. It's funny. But I'm just a bit, sometimes I'm a bit disgusted that I can perceive the peace or calm or okayness of presence a bit. And then still go, no, I prefer, I just kind of keep distracting myself from it into stories about something terrible. And I don't know why that, I kind of know why it happens, I feel, because it's sort of patterns in my body or expecting. I was saying it to Alan during the week, I've said it to others, like when I feel fear, like terror from childhood stuff and I can go back to it fairly quickly. It feels more real than the chairs and tables here in front of me. It feels
it's the same stuff, eh? Really?
Yeah.
The past and yeah.
So I'm just impatient, I guess. I'm sitting here going, okay, I can feel a bit of presence. But even the earlier conversation you were having with Soren and whoever else, I was thinking like, or Paul was asking about the LU questions, and I was thinking, could I pretend? I bet you I could answer from the mind in the present moment without any reference to the past or the future. I could still answer those questions from the mind without any presence whatsoever. I could answer those questions depending on the day. Another moment I'd go, oh, presence could answer that. And another moment it would completely mind identified answer from the present moment, because it's just contraction into that. Maybe everyone knows that already, but I was just trying to see how I could answer those. If there was a glimpse, then you can just go, oh yeah, of course I can tell you from this presence. And if there isn't one, then I'm still going, where was that gone? Where is that presence again? It's just, it seems to be, it was here a minute ago. And now it feels, and then I'm looking at that going, what's telling me that I'm not present? Something is telling me that I'm not present. There's a doubt, there's a feeling of confusion. I'm labeling it or something. And I'm just trying to see that as much as I can.
Here's an interesting question that just came up for me. What if that presence is always there, but from time to time, or even a lot of the time, you have to pretend that it's not? And that's what you're doing. You're actually pretending that it's not there, even when it actually is there.
Yeah.
So the moment that you're describing as feeling it is when you don't pretend that it's not there. But then you go back to pretending that it's not there when it actually is all the time.
Yeah.
Does that ring?
Why do you think I'm pretending?
No, I'm not. I don't think. I don't know that you are or you're not. What's your response to that?
Oh,
as a possibility.
I mean, part of some of the stories, I mean, let's call them stories, but I mean, one thing I feel I'm afraid, there's fear. I'm afraid to be present because that wasn't possible or didn't seem safe when I was a child. I needed to be seemingly the thought created person who was ready for my dad's next criticism or anger or something. And so there's that kind of.
So you're still missing what I'm asking you. What I'm saying is,
Yeah, maybe.
is that what if that presence is in fact always there, but you pretend that it's not some of the time? So you would, when you're talking about the way your dad in the past and all that stuff, you were talking about like it's not actually there when that stuff has got some kind of presence for you, when that stuff's active. It's not actually there. What I'm saying is, yeah, it's always there, and you're just using that stuff to pretend that it's not there sometimes. Does that make any sense to you? Does that have any kind of recognition for you or not?
I don't know. I mean, I kind of go, who cares if I don't notice that it's there and I'm not benefiting from, if I'm feeling.
Oh, that's mind stuff. Yeah, sure. Yeah, yeah.
Sort
Yeah.
of.
What I'm asking is, what about recognition? Do you recognize any truth in what I say? I'm not asking you to think about it.
I mean, not really. I suppose it's only theoretical.
You can say no. You're allowed to say no.
Yeah. No, I don't really. I suppose. Yeah, go on. Yes, Rena.
Yeah, I'd like just to pop back to something that you said, which sort of struck me as interesting to look into, that you were saying that you could probably answer all the questions perfectly, tell you from an, intellectually, and then you thought that you could also answer them from presence. And so therefore, it's just such a wonderful example to see the mind at work, thinking there's a question, I can answer it perfectly. Is the thinking. And the questions aren't supposed to be, there's no perfect answer for the questions because they're pointing to the what David was referring, or was it the imaginary self? The imaginary self is saying, yeah, I can answer those perfectly. But it's actually pointing to sincerity, answering from a place of sort of heart and presence, as Vince was pointing out. And can you connect just like in your body now? Can you connect to those two very different places? One approaching the questions with a heartfelt sincerity and honesty. There's a wonderful LU video on honesty, being honest with answering questions. And the other place, which is just like mental, I can really get a good answer for those questions and fool myself and everybody else.
Okay, there's two places. The word honesty doesn't distinguish them for me, but the one I was sincerity, yeah. I mean, I suppose I'd say, but this is my assertion is, before there was a glimpse here, whenever that was, I would be as sincere and honest as you could possibly imagine, and yet I would be mind identified 100%. That's what I think. I don't know. Maybe there's no point. Maybe my conversation isn't even helpful. I was just wondering if there was no glimpse whatsoever here, it was just complete mind identification, would that line of questioning get me out of that identification? And I was just wondering to myself while I was listening, if do you know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah, I know. I understand. But I think that the place to go is if you hold your heart and you're still, you're bringing the mind really can't do its tricks so well, because you're just bringing this energy of mental energy, which is like, churning around like a little helicopter. It's grounding it into a place of heart connection, and the energy and the words that will come from there will be very different.
Yeah, maybe.
Don,
Just try it. Try it.
I
Try
heard you say,
holding tight and speaking from there and seeing. It's like the mind can't. It's like the mind almost can't think as clearly because there's a depth of there's a whole depth of something else
so
arising.
what I'm hearing Rowena say, or asking Don, and what I heard you say earlier was that you could probably answer those questions from both sides. From a fully identified intellectual way, and the other side is, I heard you say this, and I don't know if it's accurate, that you could summon the presence and answer it from that side as well. You could do both. And
Yeah, present is those, but yeah, go on, yeah.
yeah, but so I'm hearing you say that you can almost pull in that presence at will and answer the questions from that side. There's some kind of shift that you can bring about where you can access that presence and answer those questions, or you can choose to just be mind identified and enter and answer them from that aspect. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I suppose so. I mean, I would say like that's been the case for the last 6 or 9 months, but it's just it's a little bit easier this week than it was the last week. It's not possible every moment, but it's easier this week than it was last week. It's been possible for 6 or 8 months,
right.
But it could be weeks when I can't access it, and this week I could probably find it most during the day.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So you recognize what goes on when it's more difficult to access, and you recognize what goes on when it's easier to access. Is that right?
I don't fully know I don't know how to get to the. I'm trying to find how to relax into finding the access. But it's a bit easier to find it, I think. But there is no foolproof way so far.
Right. So when you're finding it, it's like it's there underneath something. You're uncovering it.
Because the thing I was saying, I think that even when it is there, there's still the doubt, the confusion, the whatever, the belief that I'm identifying.
Yeah, but you don't pay as much attention to that at those moments. You recognize that they're there, but you're not really consumed by them like you would be.
I can somehow step back from it a little bit. And that's why my assumption is that doubt is all pervasive most of the time. And then it just somehow either it shrinks back or I step away from it and I can see around it or something like that.
Yeah. What about not believing it? Is that equally true?
No, I struggle with that. I'm working on that.
You do believe it. You can avoid it, but you can't not believe it. Yeah. Okay.
It's really, yeah. And that's why I mentioned my dad earlier. I mean, there's a character in it, characteristic or whatever. And I've seen this for a long time, months, I suppose, of like, you don't have permission, you're not allowed to, you can't, you're not able to, you can't, you're like almost, it feels a bit like that sometimes, a bit like, you may well be able to see the truth. You may well see who and what you are. I don't care. Just go and fucking believe these thoughts. That's your job. And you don't have permission to go there and stay present because you're just not allowed to do that. And the thought must be believed. You have to.
And what are the consequences? What are the consequences of disobeying that?
I think real consequences are zero, I'm sure now, but in my psyche, there's a bunch of stuff going down to my childhood of potential death from fury and rage, basically.
Right. Yeah. So it's pretty big stuff. Yeah.
My dad used to fly into, he was angry nearly all the time, but he flew into rages when you defied him or when you tried to have a will of your own or tried to be independent or spontaneous or anything like that. So in my system. So that's, I know I don't want to make a big massive story out of this, but it has been
Yeah,
there
yeah,
a long
I
time.
get you. Yeah, it was a pure survival situation when he went into a full-on rage, eh? Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of is a bit. So yeah, that's, I know it's there, but it's hard to drop it completely.
Yeah, yeah. What if you don't drop it? What if you just say it's okay to be there?
Yeah. I guess I'm still impatient that for now, this moment anyway, still appears to me that I believe the thoughts that arise that say, I'm identified right now. I don't get it. I'm not awake. It's never going to happen for me. But, you know, I still believe that kind of belief system thing that's associated with fear, and the, you know, the belief that it's never going to stop, or I'm never going to see through it, or I'm never going to. Those beliefs are there, and I'm impatient with that.
So what if I told you that you can be awake and still have them, and you just recognize them for what they are?
Yeah, maybe.
John, where is fear felt in the body? Fear
Well-
is just a label. That's just a label for what?
Yeah, there's sensations.
You can't look up. You can't look up. You can only go down.
Yeah.
As soon as you look up, you're in your head.
So I look up
You
just
can't
now. I
find
did.
it. Can't find it. It's a label. It's
Yeah.
an overlay. It's like saying the moon, and having a whole concept about the moon and talking about it and not looking up and, you know.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
a good one for you too, Melly. Watch when your eyes go up. That's when you're in your head. When your eyes go down, you're in your body. Yeah.
There's a funny one I was going to ask before. I had this idea before. Like after years, decades of me trying to find this stuff in my system, this fear and stuff and stories, and what, like I'm trying to, and it really has been hard to find this stuff. It's only less than a year ago that I've really found some of this stuff. It's been buried and could not get access to it for the life of me for decades. And so now I'm kind of trying to be as open to it and trying to be as tell the story and listen to them and really hear it and feel it and blah, blah, because I could never feel it to see it before, you know. So on the one hand, I'm trying to do that. And the other hand, I'm trying to go, oh, you know, in some sense, I'm not trying to deny it. I'm just trying to not take it so seriously or something. There's a weird sense in which I want to take it really seriously and open up to it. And yet not take it so seriously that it's not a massive big story and it's just a sensation. I want to do that without closing down and pretending it isn't there or something. It's a weird, I don't know.
That's why I say
Those are just thoughts. Those are all thoughts of an I doing something.
Yeah.
Don's good in the doing department. He for a long time he's reckoned if he didn't try really hard, things would be so black they'd be terrible. You know, so he's got to work really harder just to stay in this slightly horrible place.
Yeah. I'm still not convinced that's not true though.
No,
But, I don't know.
I love being wrong. That's good.
I know. But I did have, well, I suppose I did have a very kind of a almost funny, stark experience of it, like on Wednesday after my dentist experience, as I just said. So I had been in this totally chill place for an hour and a half while I was getting my tooth drilled. I was like, well, that's amazing. And then I got into a massive spin on the way home. And the thought was, if I don't get a grip of this dentist will have all my money taken. I have to get back into the head and figure out how to stop him taking all my money. And so I can't be relaxed because I'll have no money by the end of the month. And it was funny how the mind was telling me this. And I was kind of believing that if I relaxed too much, this guy was going to keep on making appointments that cost €950 per go. And I wasn't going to be able to stop him unless I got angry and stamped my foot. And I could see that mechanism in my system telling me I needed the mind to protect me from him.
You should have just turned him into the Walking Dead.
What if even what if even in all of that activity, there's still no one participating in it?
What if?
There,
I mean,
there
I
was,
assume there is. Yeah.
there was no one participating in all that thought. It was just there.
They
Yeah, I
weren't
was trying to.
they were
Yeah.
just thoughts.
I think I was trying to consider that, but I was just so much fear that if I let go of a person, that nobody would stop this dentist. I knew it was silly, you know, but at the same time, I was feeling it quite strongly.
That's just
No, you
additional.
weren't. You were putting a label on it, but you weren't feeling the sensation of the fear, Don. And these were all here pointing you to sensation. Because a label of
Okay.
fear is, you know, it's just four letters, but it doesn't
Okay.
describe anything of the richness of what's going on in the body that doesn't even need that label. Because as Pernilla says, in the end, there is no fear, anger, guilt, and shame. There's just body sensations with labels.
But your
So every time that's is diversion. You're diverting because of not ignoring the pointer of mind just saying, oh, they're going to take advantage of me, all this, and saying, oh, this is uncomfortable, is thinking there must be the counter coming, inviting me into the body to feel what's going on, because there must be a lot of sensation going there. It's always an invitation,
Okay.
not a label.
Yeah, this is
Okay.
an extremely interesting one. Your outrage that felt so strong was all in the head. It was all happening like there's a tornado going around in your head, and that's where your outrage existed, and that's where it felt like it was your whole body, but it was just all in your head.
Hmm.
I can just imagine a tornado, or there used to be a cartoon on TV, and it was a Tassie Devil, and he used to play havoc
Oh,
with
yeah.
sorts of things. Yeah, I can
That's
imagine.
exactly what it reminded me of. Yeah, I was only experiencing that a few weeks ago, and that's exactly who or what I remember. That's that tornado, that Tasmanian devil of the thoughts spinning at great speed. Yeah.
Like a yeah. But so that's interesting. So what Rowena is pointing to is that in fact you may not be experiencing that in the body at all. It may well be that it feels like everything, but it's all in the head. I wonder if what is going on in the body when that's going on in the head. That'd be a really interesting one to look at.
Well, yeah. As I say, I was doing this with Alan a couple of weeks ago, and what I mean, I'm not saying this is true. This is just something I experienced or noticed or something 2 or 3 weeks ago, which is I was feeling what I was calling fear. Okay, and I was trying to find what was happening, and there was nothing going on here that was scary. And what I found was that tornado, which I, like I said, thought about the Tasmanian devil that day, and it was just going at 100 miles an hour and faster, saying fear, fear, fear. You have to be afraid. You have to be afraid. Telling me to be afraid. Constantly telling me, and I was just believing it because it was so fast. And I was thinking this is what it seemed to me at the time. Maybe I will find sensations primary to that again. I don't know, but I was just noticing that as seemed like a thought form was repeatedly telling me you have to be afraid.
Yes. Yeah.
Look for what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
And that's what I was noticing, and it seemed to, and I was going, why am I feeling afraid here
It's
about
so
nothing?
consuming, isn't it? Yeah.
But yeah, so maybe that's, you say, maybe I'll say that's diversion, maybe it is, I don't know. But yeah. And I was trying to find, sometimes I do find it hard to find stuff in the body a lot of the time. I've done a lot of this body stuff the last few years, and I just find it, my body seems innocuous most of the time. There's a lot of it's happening in the head. And but maybe it's just I need to keep going down and seeing what's down there.
Yeah, it could well be exactly that. When you say it, that gives it some validity, you know, that, yeah, it's a way of avoiding going down into what's actually happening in the body. Yeah.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'll keep looking, whatever. Yeah, experiencing as best I can. Yeah.
It's interesting how you have a thought, and then attached to that thought is another thought that says the first thought is true. And somehow or other that thought has to be true. The one that says the other one is true, that also has to be true. And the one that says that that one is true also has to be true. So it's a bit of an endless loop there that's all about it being true.
Yeah. There's some kind of certainty about the second one, or the one that says you have no choice but to believe these thoughts.
Oh, that's a different one again. Yeah, okay. That's interesting.
And that's I've been seeing that for a year and a half. And the first time I saw that, I was like, "Ooh, that's interesting." And that seems really certainly true. I have no choice but to believe these thoughts. And I've looked at that for a long time, and I'm still not sure how to overcome or undermine it or what. It just
So
I
even
get
if
really frustrated, and I go, I can see it's a thought. What's wrong with me? Can I not just see it, decide it? No, I
you can
can't.
also see that it's not true, but you still have to believe that it is true.
Yeah.
That's incredible. That is, yeah, there's a name for that. What is that name? There's a way of
Sanity, is it?
Oh, I forget what it is now. Yeah. Yeah, I had an experience with a brother-in-law, kind of a brother-in-law at the time. Yeah, and he was an idiot. He was. Anyway, he said, all Muslims are terrorists. I said, what do you mean all Muslims were terrorists? That's just patently not true. I jumped onto Google and looked it up, and we found out that 49% of the terrorism in America was done by something else, cartels and stuff like that, and that the actual rate of Muslim terrorists in America was like something like about 0.7%. And I showed it to him, and he said to me, he said, "Well, I don't care what the facts are. It's still true for me that all Muslims are terrorists." I couldn't believe it. Here he was just in denial of the facts.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, and there's the same thing going on for you. It's
I found this in the last one. I mean, I notice these thoughts, or the whatever thoughts, I guess, or beliefs, and I see them sometimes, and I think, if I met a person like this, I'd think they're some kind of fundamentalist Christian, no offense to Christians, or whoever, who just believed something and didn't care about the facts or evidence or anything. We're not going to change their views. And I just wouldn't be interested in listening to that person for more than 5 minutes. I go, there's no point. But I have thoughts like that in my head that I somehow believe, even though if I met a person like that, I go, yeah, it doesn't matter. And
so the one that you believe is the imperative that you have to believe it.
I can't get under it most of the time. It's
strange. What are you getting out of it, Don? Have you asked yourself what are you actually getting from the continuous believing of your thoughts, even and the I, even though you know that there is no self? So there must be a huge advantage that to keep it going.
I can't really. I haven't got. You'd think I would have got to it by now. The closest I can get to it this very moment is if I allowed myself to. What is it? Oh, I got confused now. If I allowed myself to believe, say, I don't know, say that I deserve to recognize that I can see presence or something, or it wasn't, recognize I didn't have to believe the thoughts. Somehow there's some terrible consequence in my psyche somewhere there that I would be asserting my independence, and that would spell my death from my childhood trauma point of view. I would be saying kind of to my dad in my head, I'm going to be independent. I'm going to ignore you. I'm going to do what I want. I'm going to be spontaneous and whatnot. And I'm not going to be anxious about the consequences or care what you're going to say next. I'm just going to be myself. And I feel like there's a fear of death in there somewhere that I'm just not going to go near. And I have to, but it feels like it's protected. It's something like that. I think that there's a fear there that I will die if I allow myself to, something like that. And I mean, you think I would know, I'm looking at it for years and I should be able to see into it by now, but it's something like that. seems kind of scary. Yeah.
Okay, I found the word. It's called
Are
cognitive
you
dissonance.
muted?
Cognitive dissonance.
Again, fear, yeah,
Huh?
and it's just a thought at this stage because I'm afraid of dying. It's just a thought because that it's the label and what is it that's going to die? You know, that it's the thought is so terrifying that it's keeping you away from saying, okay, let's see what this fear, how it's manifesting in my body. How is it manifesting in my body? Because into the sensation.
I feel it seems ridiculous to me. I've been looking at this for so long, and I feel like making lame excuses again. But it does seem to have. I'm going to keep doing it, but you know that's why I want to make an effort. You know, but it does seem to have. I don't know. It seems ridiculous. It does seem to have the power to make me go unconscious. I mean, basically, this thought process here, whatever, can just take me away from what I'm doing and make me go asleep almost. And I'm gonna go blank, get confused, go, you know, come up straight out of my body, no sensation, almost no, you know, very little sense of my sensations or my feelings, just in my head, in an unconscious kind of blank place. It just seems to be almost physically able to take me away from what I'm trying to do in my meditation or whatever. Really is, it does feel quite strong. And it's ridiculous. I'm thinking, what am I talking about? Thoughts? I don't know. But anyway.
It sounds like the freeze response to me. It's one of the survival, very much the animal brain, freeze, fight, flight, whatever.
Yeah.
That stuff. Yeah.
That sort of thing. Yeah. So
Don,
it's weird. Yeah.
Don, I used to have a very similar, personally, I had a very similar type of reaction or behavior. And what I found was that after all of this looking, I could never find what was leading me away from the body. I mean, I did Vipassana, I did meditation twice a day for an hour, and I was so familiar with sensations in the body. I knew them inside out. But I could just never find the location of this one sensation that would be just taking my mind and tearing it apart. It would just take absolute control with the fear. And even though I knew how to you know, examine the body, how to, you know, head to toe, every square millimeter of my body, I could find sensation. And then one morning I was driving to this situation that was going to make, it was a potential confrontation for a working situation. And I was just driving and I just felt this tension. It felt like tension inside my lower abdomen, just the bottom of my stomach. And I just looked at it and I go, that has been there for as long as I can remember. It was just so familiar, it was just like it was part of my body. It was never to be seen. After all these hours and many years of examination, I just couldn't see it. And it's just this one morning I saw this tension, and it was actually just a contraction in the lower part of my stomach. And it was always there. And it just hit me. That's it. That's my fear. That's what my mind was labeling fear. It was everything, and it was just that. All the fear that I ever felt was in that one sensation. And in that realization, there was this this is my experience, and it's only experience, but there was just this realization that, oh, that's it. That's all that noise in my head was coming from that. And then the rest of that day, there was the conflict situation was just nothing. No thought, no fear. So, okay, the moral to the story, I guess, is what probably Ruin is trying to point to, or is pointing to, is that sometimes that sensation is just so familiar with you, like so familiar to your body, that it doesn't seem like a sensation. It can feel like just a natural part of who you are.
Yep.
Who yourself is.
You might even call it a blind spot.
Yeah. Okay. Just maybe that helps to identify this tension or contraction in the body. Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know either. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'll keep looking, I suppose. I don't know what to. Yeah, it is funny. I do know it's even, well, not just sensations. A lot of things seem so normal. I kind of, in some way, I know they're not normal, and yet they're normal. They're just the way I perceive the world is distorted, and yet it's such a normal distortion for me that I don't see it. Yeah, I don't know what you can do though. You can keep looking, but as you say, like if it's so normal or so, yeah. But yeah. Anyway, thank you.
Don't do anything.
Don't do anything. You're gonna go see it.
How are you traveling, Bianca?
Well, I feel there has to be experience to be the experience, and with your exercises, it's the one with the tree and the sound. It's exactly, there can be no sound if there is nobody in the forest, so there has to be an experience there.
There has to be an experiencer for there to be sound. Yeah, from a biological level, that's true. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I don't understand the difference between this biological level and what level?
Well, see, we can't experience that biological, the science behind it. We can only know from reading about it or hearing about it. But for the sake of this analogy, we can see that it requires the mechanism of the ear and the brain to experience a sound. It's not inherent in the tree falling. It takes a combination of both. So the tree falling is going to create a vibration in the air, which our ear picks up and then converts it into physical stuff in the eardrum, and then into nerve on the inside of the ear. And then that nerve stuff goes to the brain, and then the brain experiences the sound. But the point of that story is to show how all of our physical experiences happen in the brain. They don't happen externally. So if you hit your thumb with a hammer, the pain is not felt in your thumb, the pain is felt in your brain. That's where the experience of pain is. And the brain very cleverly projects it back out to where he thinks the injury is. And so you'll get your experience will be of it being in the thumb. Just as if you are in the forest,
yes,
tree falls,
yes,
your experience is over there where the sound is coming from. But that's your brain doing all of that. It's not actual.
Yes.
And so everything,
as I say, it's all on the internal screen.
Yeah.
So
and
to say, metaphorically.
Everybody's experience and DNA and conditioning and all of that also makes it unique for each person. So you and I can stand beside a coloured car and you can say it's blue and I say it's green, and we both reporting what our brain says, but one says it's green and one says it's blue, but it's the same car, it's the same colour. It's just the way everybody has a unique experience of the world and of other people. So at a very simplistic level, we have an agreement about how that works. But as soon as we get into detail, as soon as we burrow down and get closer to it, we recognise that it's beyond words, the ability to describe it accurately. It's a whole other.
Okay.
Yeah.
My point is, I can't get out of this matrix where there has to be experiencer, there has to be someone looking at this internal monitor. If not, it's
Only logic will say that there has to be someone doing it. Looking is experiencing. Looking is experienced.
Mhm.
But to say that somebody is doing that is just logic. It's all mental.
We are using logic here all the time.
Yeah, sure, we are. Yeah, but hopefully we're using logic to point to what is actual. So you can't experience a person witnessing. You can only experience witnessing.
Of course, if I could experience the
Well, to say
experience,
you only experience
then
witnessing is not quite right either. There is
Yeah.
only the experience of witnessing.
that's. Can you tell it once more? I didn't hear.
Yes, there. If witnessing is happening, there is only witnessing happening. So to say there is witnessing of a person isn't accurate. There is only witnessing. What it's witnessing of can only be created by the mind. Who is witnessing can only be created by the mind. But there is no question that witnessing is happening.
That connects up with something else that you mentioned too, Vince, the idea of rebirth.
Oh,
That-
well, wait.
In each moment, there's that rebirth of the witness is invented moment by moment by a thought. It's born again and again and again by being recreated.
Yeah, every time
By
we think
thought.
about it. Yeah. Or more accurately, every time we believe a thought about it.
It's, okay, so the subject is created by the mind, but so is red.
Yes, true. Red is. So
So
when you experience red,
mhm.
so to call it red is to make it really simplistic. Right? Your actual experience of red is way, way, way too subtle to call it, to say it's just red. There are 1,000 variations of red, and no matter what you're looking at, if you're looking at something that we call red, you're going to find even if you're looking at one little area of that, you're going to find variations of that red in that.
Yes, but it's still all created by the mind.
Of course it's created by the mind, yes, absolutely.
And so is this subject. And so
Yeah, so it's a concept you're talking about.
But red is not a
Yes, it is.
concept.
Yes, it is. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, when I use the word red, it's a concept.
Yes.
But when I see red, it's a sensation.
That's right, Bianca. Sensation happens first, and then the thought is created around the sensation.
But I'm talking about the sensation is also created by the mind. You know, when
Yes,
there was
I agree.
a case.
Is it but?
Yes, there was a case of synesthesia in a person who had daltonism.
Yes, yes. So
He
they
could,
feel, hear or feel the color.
yes.
Mm.
And when looking at numbers, some numbers he saw in red color. And there was research that these synesthetes, or how it's called,
Yes,
they really see red. It's not that they imagine red, they really see it.
Yeah, yeah, sure. Yeah, it's still created by the
Yeah.
mind, though. So it's not.
So he couldn't see red in the real world because he had daltonism.
Yeah, yeah.
But he saw it in synesthesia.
Mm.
There is no such thing as actual red. There isn't any red substance. There aren't
That's
any
what
red.
I'm talking about, that it's created by
Yes.
the brain.
Yes. There are no red photons.
Yeah. So we're not in
It's a
disagreement
place
here.
it's a place activated in the brain that makes the red
Yes.
or any
Whatever
hue.
it is. Yes, yeah, everything.
Yes, to appear.
An interpretation.
A qualia to appear. Yeah. Oh,
I didn't get that word.
I'm not sure how it is spelled in English. You have a funny way.
That's correct.
Absolutely funny.
With Latin words.
Yeah.
It's
But we agree. Everything's created in the mind. Yeah.
Yes.
And we experience what we create in the mind.
Yes.
But in the mind isn't quite right. Once again, it's a case of definition. We can say that thoughts create, but there is stuff that's created that don't apparently have thoughts preceding them. So that makes it a little bit trickier, but it's still the brain interpreting for whatever reason.
So
at a general level, you can say yes, it's all stories. Everything is created from story, without exception.
I don't feel like this subject object is a thought.
Oh,
it is something created by brain, but more like a sensation is created by the brain. It's a kind of matrix.
Okay, yeah. Well, you could be right there as far as that's concerned. So, yes, you can have a thought about a subject, and as a result of that thought, you can have a sensation. So you can experience a subject. You can experience an object by responding to a thought about it. there's got to be a but there. There's that, but it's, yeah. So it's not yes. So your experience when you have a thought about a subject or an object and you have an experience, your thought isn't about an actual subject or an object. It's about the thought of it that you're responding to. Yeah. Phew, you had me going there for a minute. Yeah. So the value of all of that is to, so we're kind of coming back around the circle again, because we started off with we're believing thoughts and the problem with all of that, and then we get around the circle and we start to come back on ourselves and we start to go, it's all thought. Everything we experience is responding is a result of thought. It's a result of stories. That's how we create the world, with stories. But we started off with maladaptive stories, and they created a lot of suffering. And on our way back around, we've got better stories and a better experience of the world that we create, hopefully. So yeah, it's a bit of a trick.
I just don't get it. How can you go out of this subject object? And when you said this about this cup experience,
Yes, I know you couldn't get that one. You couldn't kind of see that. Yeah.
Yes. And now I think it's no matter what question you ask, if it's a question about experiencer or experiencing or the object, it always will get me into the mind.
Yes.
Because the question is asked in words.
Yeah.
I have to figure out the meaning. What is it that you are asking?
Okay, so what about direct experiencing? Have you ever had the experience where there is a synesthetic input of any of the senses, whether it be hearing is probably the easiest one, before any thoughts arrive about it? So let's say there is a sound, and you experience that sound, and then almost afterwards along comes an explanation of what the sound is. Have you ever had that experience? So before thoughts turn up to explain it or describe it or whatever, you're having an experience. There is just experiencing going on, what we call direct experience.
Yes.
And then thoughts turn up and they try to explain it, and they actually can change it. Right. One of the example that I use here was an experience I had when I was sleeping in a caravan in my sister-in-law's front yard, back when around about the time I woke up. Anyway, I woke up one morning and I kind of half awake, and I'm hearing the sound, and it was this sound, and my mind came along and said, it's the surf. I'm hearing the sound of the waves, the surf on the shoreline, the waves coming in on the shore. I'm hearing the sound of surf. You know what surf sounds like? And then as I woke up, I realized that I couldn't possibly be hearing the sound of the surf because I was miles away from the shore. What I was actually hearing was the sound of the freeway about 1 kilometre away, and the cars that were starting to travel to town. And as the volume of traffic built up, I was hearing the sound of cars. right? But I thought I was hearing the sound of the surf until I woke up enough for my logic to kick in and realize that it was something else altogether. So my mind lied to me in the beginning. So wasn't quite what I was talking about with you about hearing before thoughts arrived, but in fact what I was talking about was thoughts arrived and I explained it, and then I realized that it was wrong. I was lying to myself about that, what I first thought I would. Yeah.
I wouldn't call it lying.
Well, that's the way I interpreted it. Yeah. So what I'm saying is there is the experience of the sound, and then thoughts arrive later to describe it. So when there is just the sound and no thoughts for that instant, that moment, that there is no thoughts, there is just the sound, that direct experiencing has no subject or object. There is just sound sounding, or whatever input it is. The only way you're going to find a subject or an object is to think about it at that moment. And when you do, the sound will stop sounding, because your mind is, you're no longer paying attention to it because you're lost in the mind. So my suggestion is that you try it with sound. Sit next to the refrigerator and listen to the sound of the refrigerator, just because it's a constant one, you know, while it's going, as long as it is going. Open the door for a while and then it'll keep going for a while. And then as you listen to that sound, allow yourself to get lost in it. It's easier with sound than with sight, because it's not as many distractions. And getting lost in that sound until you can experience the sound, like have a case of synesthesia where you're experiencing the sound as a feeling. And when you get lost in that and you can experience that sound like that at that level, then ask yourself, who is hearing? Or what is it that I'm hearing? And watch. And you'll find that you'll stop hearing it while you think about it. You can't do both together. But
it's just because I'm asking question.
Yes, that's right.
It's
And
not about
you get in the mind. All right. So
what about the question?
Don't ask the question. Ask. Try and experience the hearer.
It's not possible. Subject is not experienced.
And you can't experience the refrigerator, the object. You can't experience that. You can only think about it.
Sound is the object.
Sound is the object. The sound is not a noun, and unless we talk about it. The sound at that level, when you're involved with it like that, is a verb. It's a happening. It can't be locked down in any way, shape, or form. You can only experience it. You can't bottle it. It's not a noun. It's not an object. It's a verb.
Does an object has to be a noun?
An object has to be a noun, yeah. Or sometimes we imagine an abstract noun is an object. And so when we say a sound, it's an abstract noun. It's not a concrete noun. If it's a verb, it's a happening. It's fluid. It's moving. It's whatever, you know, it's action. And sound is action. So it's really sounding, not sound. We shouldn't say sound. That's bad English again, but it's the way our language is. stupid language. We really should be saying sounding, not hearing, because hearing is a subject again. It's sounding. But don't believe the words. Don't believe the words. Try it out and see what happens. You may or may not get it, but give it a go. Yeah. If you know, classical music, it can be good for that kind of thing as well, especially if it's a long one. Some of the long violin things are good. Stringed instruments seem to be better than some others, but yeah. But the refrigerator works well because it's just a constant low hum that's going down, or the air conditioner, something like that. Yeah.
I like the sound of rain.
Yes. Yeah, me too. On a tin roof. Okay. It's just turned midnight here, so time for me to go to bed. Yeah. Okay.
Thanks, Vince.
No worries.
Thanks, everyone.
Right.
Thank you.